Thank you for joining us today for Daily Devotions. This week I'm looking at word pictures that the New Testament uses to describe who Christians are, or what we are supposed to be. Today we're looking at the writings of Paul in 1 Corinthians chapter 4, where Paul describes us as servants or stewards. He said this is how you should regard us, as servants of Christ and stewards of the mysteries of God. Moreover, it is required of stewards that they be found faithful. The Apostle Paul has been talking to the church at Corinth, and as he is talking with them about some issues that are underlying and resulted in 1 Corinthians being written, part of the problem was there was Paul and Peter and Apollos who were servants of God, and they had been entrusted with the work of God, and that was being challenged somewhat by the Corinthian church. So Paul writes and gives us a great description of what God expects of us and how He sees us. Paul said that God sees us as servants. We are His servants. He has purchased us and made us His own. We serve Him, not out of obligation, but out of love. But more importantly, Paul says we are stewards. That is, God has entrusted to us certain responsibilities. He's given to us the gifts and the skills that are needed, and Paul would later go on to describe that in 1 Corinthians chapter 12. God has gifted us to accomplish what He's entrusted to us. And then he says He's also given to all of us love. We're a steward of God's love. We're responsible for that. As believers, the way we live our life and we relate to others reflects much about what type of a servant we are. Are we humble or proud and haughty? Are we lazy or are we diligent? And then he said we're to be stewards. God's given to us a trust to take care of. In the great big picture of things, God's given to us a responsibility to care for the environment that's around us. And regretfully, evangelical Christians for too many years have neglected the environment and have ignored it, and only in recent years have we begun to pay attention and to some degree to the environment in which we live. God has entrusted to us this world, and we are responsible for how we treat His environment. But let's move away from the big picture and come down to where you and I really live. We are responsible for where God has placed us. Maybe He's placed us in a job in an office, a classroom, or He's given us a job in a factory or out on a construction site or in a lawn care service. There's a variety of places God places His people. He even places them in government. And as God places us there, He gives to us a responsibility to be salt and to be light. In other words, we are His servants who have been given a responsibility. So Paul said, a steward must recognize we are to be faithful. That is, one day God will hold us accountable for our service and the stewardship of how we have handled the place where He has placed us. So my question today is, how are you handling the job where God's placed you? Whatever it might be, you are there by divine appointment of God, and He's called you to be a faithful servant and steward. Will you be faithful? Will you be a diligent steward for Him today? Father, bless us today that we be Your servants, Your stewards, and one day when we stand before You, we can hear You say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. God bless you. Have a great day.